Hello and welcome back to my channel, Juice It with Zita. I am privileged to have the opportunity to share with you lifestyle tips that will help you to live happy, healthy, and long lives. Today is Father's Day in Canada. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. My biggest role model is my dad. He's 86, turning 87 at the end of this year. He has managed his diabetes for 40 plus years. He's still as smart as a whip. He has a sense of humor second to none. And he keeps very, very active. He has a very structured life and everybody knows him for his discipline. When I got diagnosed with diabetes 15 years ago, he was heartbroken. And he would advise me from his years of experience, Zita, you need to eat right, you need to exercise. But I never took heed to that. I thought I have pills that I can pop to manage my blood sugars. 2 years ago, I decided to turn things around. When I saw how he was aging gracefully, I thought I could take a page or two out of his playbook. And I decided to turn things around, and it has been a life-changing experience for me. But another thing that stood out to me was most of my dad's age mates are gone, leaving a number of widows around. And it struck me, why is it that men normally have a shorter lifespan than women? I have the answer here from research work that I've done to confirm why men do die a lot younger than women. Keep the age difference aside. Normally we know men get older than their wives. That's what we grew up knowing. But there is another very important reason that stops men from living longer as they would have lived without this. I'm going to spell it out right away. The most important reason why men die younger is because they do not follow through with doctor's visits. Think about it. When was the last time you went for your annual physical exams? When was the last time you visited the doctor's office? And research has shown that men have a macho attitude that accounts for missed visits. Secondly, the fear of a poor diagnosis keeps them away from going to a doctor's office. Thirdly, they are uncomfortable with exams, especially exams that are invasive, like rectal exams. They are very uncomfortable with that, and that stops them from going to the doctor's office. And this is something that contributes to men dying younger. Why? Because there are a lot of diseases that take years to build up. And when you continue keeping away or aside these doctor's visits, that is when these diseases build up. And before you know it, it's too late. So that is the major reason why men who keep off doctor's appointments would normally die early, because things will creep up and by the time you know it, it's already too late. And we have some statistics here to bolster this point. First of all, only 3 out of 5 men get a yearly physical checkup. 12% of men 20 years and older are in fair or bad health. 40%, get this right, 40% of men only visit the doctor's office when they are afraid of a chronic medical condition. So these statistics prove that men generally put off doctor's visits until when it is too late. We want to change that dynamic today. I'm going to put out reasons why you need to visit the doctor every year at least in order to fight diseases that can go under the radar for years. 34% of men over the age of 20 are either overweight or obese, and all of these are underlying factors to health concerns. Why are we laying so much emphasis on annual physical checkups, because things can be discovered during these medical checkups, and early detection is key. We know that once some diseases are detected early enough, it's an opportunity for these diseases to be treated or even completely reversed. But when we keep it to the end, when it's already out of hand, it becomes very difficult to control. The first disease we're going to look at is heart disease. Research shows that heart disease is the leading cause of death among men. It is responsible for 1 in 4 deaths among men. That is a staggering number. And what are the risk factors? High blood pressure, high LDL cholesterol, and smoking. And according to the CDC, at least 49% of Americans have one of these risk factors, which means they are already predisposed to heart disease. That is why early screening is key. The next disease we want to look at that is becoming very, very recurrent is prostate cancer. 50% of men over the age of 50 experience some kind of changes in the shape or size of prostate gland cells. If diagnosed early, this condition can be actually reversed before it goes into full-blown prostate cancer. And what are the risk factors here? You are age 50 and older. 60% of men of Black ancestry have high risk of having prostate cancer. A diet high in red meat. And finally, they are obese. So these are the risk factors around prostate cancer. The next type of cancer that is becoming very prevalent is colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a term that includes the colon and the rectum, and that is when cancer affects these two organs. The second leading cause of death in men after heart disease. And this is one of those invasive tests that men are not very willing to engage in. But when we look at the risk factors, there is a need to carry out this test as often as required in order to prevent full-blown colorectal cancer. And the risk factors here include your age 50 and over, you have a family history, you already have some kind of cancer, you have inflammatory bowel disease, you drink more than 2 alcoholic drinks a day, you are obese, you smoke, you have diabetes, and you have a high-fat diet. So all of these work towards they are the risk factors for colorectal cancer. And physicians would say that from age 45, it's important to start taking on these tests so that, as we always say, prevention is better than cure. Another thing that is coming up frequently now is cholesterol. We know that cholesterol is very important in the body because it helps to perform very vital functions. For instance, it helps to produce hormones, vitamin D, and bile acids that help to digest fat. There are 2 types of cholesterol in the body. We have the LDL, which is the low-density lipoprotein, which is considered the bad guy. And we have HDL, which is the high-density lipoprotein, which is considered the good guy. So when you go for your annual physical exams, it's important to know that you are supposed to have low levels of LDL and high levels of HDL. And why is this so? Because LDL cholesterol has an affinity to fat. So it binds with fat and forms plaque along the arteries. And when this happens, it clogs the arteries and restricts blood flow. And this can cascade into a number of different things. Once blood flow is restricted, you can even get a stroke or it can lead to heart attack. On the other hand, the HDL helps to take LDL, the bad guy, out of your system. That's as simplistic as it looks, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. So aim for high HDL levels and low LDL levels. And the only way you can find out and get advice on how to maintain optimal levels is if you do your annual physicals or visit a doctor's office. So what are the risk factors here? You have a diet high in saturated or trans fats. You eat ultra-processed foods. You are obese or overweight, and you lack exercise in your life. Factors that can lead to high LDL levels as opposed to high HDL levels. The next disease we're going to look at that is also very prevalent is type 2 diabetes. That is my niche. Research has shown that men develop diabetes slightly more than women. And what do the statistics say? According to the CDC, 14% of men are likely to be diabetic as opposed to only 11% of women. What are the symptoms of pre-diabetes? So if you have these symptoms, it's pre-diabetes, and if you visit your doctor, this condition can be reversed with lifestyle and exercise. So what are the signals? What are the symptoms to let you know that there's something going wrong? The risk factors include excessive tiredness, inability to maintain and sustain erection, overactive bladder, and blurred vision, amongst others. So when you start having these symptoms, it's important to check out with your doctor and run tests. They will normally do an insulin sensitive test, or they will do a fasting blood sugar test that will determine your level of insulin resistance, which is one of the major symptoms of type 2 diabetes, and it can be reversed. Next is the almighty testosterone. And I would just want to say here that testosterone is found in both men and women, but just in different proportions. And testosterone is the major or the main sex hormone in men, and it also performs different functions in the body. Naturally, as men age, the levels of testosterone generally drop. And this can lead to a number of health concerns, including loss of muscle mass, obesity, unhealthy cholesterol levels, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases. So there are signs of unusual decline in testosterone in your body, which can give you an idea of what is happening in your body and give you that need to make that visit. And these include increased visceral fat around the belly area, decreased muscle mass, decreased body hair, hot flushes, increased fatigue, low sex drive, and difficulty with erections. So what are the major causes of all these chronic diseases I have mentioned in men? The first one is lifestyle. And top on the list of lifestyle factors include smoking, poor diet, unhealthy weight, inactivity, overuse of alcohol, and stress. And there is one thing I just want to note here. Another thing that leads to death in men is car accidents. Research shows that men are more likely to get into car accidents than women. So in order to prevent this, make sure you're not driving when you're under the influence. Make sure you put on your seat belt, and make sure you respect speed limits. Just these three things can save your life. Another very important factor that leads to men dying early is stress. Has led to a lot more suicide among men than women. So it's important to do that checking every time, every now and then, to find out your mental state of health. And if you start feeling undervalued, you have no motivation to carry on with your goals, those are signs that things are not going right inside. So please check with your doctor immediately, because that can lead to depression. Those are signs of depression, and it leads to stress, and most people have suicidal thoughts when they're in this place. So check your stress level all the times to make sure that it's manageable, and seek help if you need to. I know that so far I have been sounding like a prophet of doom, but this is the truth. I do not want anybody to die from ignorance. I want us, most of us are in North America or in areas where we have healthcare that is available to us. Why do we not use it? Why do we keep pushing aside these visits to the doctors for other things that will come back to bite us in the future? So I don't want anybody to die of ignorance. I want to put this information out there so nobody says I did not know. This is the information. So what are the tests that we should be looking out for? And when you go for your annual physicals, you can make proposals to your physician for these tests to be run. The first one is prostate cancer. Once you're over age 55, make sure you run that test. Secondly, from age 45, you have to start doing a colorectal cancer test, and it's called a colonoscopy. Next is the test for skin cancer. Next, high blood pressure. And from the age of 35, you need to start testing for cholesterol. What are the prevention strategies? What should we do to prevent the onset of these chronic diseases? The first thing is get in your veggies. If you've been in this channel with me, you will know how much importance I place on the importance of eating whole foods, of eating fresh fruits and vegetables. And you ask, what are whole foods? Anything that looks as close to its natural form as possible, it's a natural food. So try to get as much of those. You have fresh fruits, you have vegetables, you have nuts, you have seeds, you have legumes. Try to add as much of these in your diet as possible, because these have properties that help to prevent the onset of these diseases. Secondly, you need to manage your weight. If you were vigilant, you realize that there is overweight or poor weight that causes to most of these diseases that I mentioned. So one good thing to do is to manage your weight. And if you do number one very well, if you eat right, you eat whole foods, it's naturally going to keep your weight on an ideal level. So try to manage your weight by eating right, and of course being active. Get up and walk. We are in a society that everything has been made to be so comfortable and accessible to us that it's so difficult for us to get up and get active. So try to get active, and the recommendation is to get about 30 minutes of activity for at least 5 days a week, and also to include some strength training in order to build your bones and build muscle mass into your exercise routine. So these are things that will help out. So these are the solutions to the men dying earlier than women. And for us, the women, we can take it as a point of duty to remind the men in our lives to run these tests. And it's easy. On Father's Day, that is one of the gifts that you can give the men in your life. Make them to go run these tests so that they can be here for as long as possible, happy and healthy with you and your families. So please take time to consider where health lies in your list of priorities. Make it front and center. Let it be your topmost priority to live a healthy life. Happy Father's Day. Be healthy.